Masechet Yevamot Daf Sadi Chet. We've been speaking about a machloket between Rav Acha bar Yaakov and Rav Sheshet regarding a convert, or rather two converts, brothers who were born not Jewish and then convert. And the question is, can one marry the wife of the other after the other dies or divorces? Rav Sheshet was the stringent one, said no, and Rav Acha said it is permitted. So we're going to start off with a proof for Rav Sheshet that in fact such a case is prohibited. So here's the Braita Tashema. Shene achim teomim gerim, twins, that brothers that are twins, and they are converts. So therefore, since they are twins, that means they have both the same father and the same mother. V'chen meshuchrarim, or if they are freed slaves, which would be equivalent to converts, lo chosin velo miyabemin, there is no mitzvah of chalitza or yibum, because they're in order to do yibum or chalitza, they need to be paternal brothers, and we don't recognize their paternal brotherhood because they converted. And there is no prohibition of sister-in-law, again because they were converted. They are like newborn, and their prior biological relationship is not recognized legally in halacha. Second case, so the first case is when they were totally converted. They were born not Jewish and then they converted. The second case is where they were conceived when the mother was not Jewish, but the mother converted, dunked in the mikveh while she was pregnant, which means that the fetuses also undergo a conversion. So when they are born Jewish, although they are converts. In that case, lo cholsin velo miyabemin, they do not do chalitza or yibum. The reason is because the paternal brotherhood goes by conception. That's when the father is involved. And when the father was conceived the children, the mother was not Jewish. And so therefore, they were conceived not Jewishly, and their common father is not legally recognized. Aval chayavin mishum eshet ach, but they are liable as a sister, and one is liable to be with his brother's wife, because since they were born together Jewish, and so they are related from their mother's side. They are maternal brothers, and maternal brothers also are not permitted to marry each other's wives. Good, that's an important principle. If the mother converted fully first, and then, only then, conceived and bore the children, well, then they are fully Jewish, and that way they could do Yibum Chalitza, and they would be liable they would not be allowed to marry Eshet Ach, except for Yibum. Okay, that's the end of the Braita. Now, what's our point? Since it says that they are not liable because of Eshet Ach, in the first case here, Chiyuva Aleka, Ha-isura ikaf, it says they are not chayav, we can infer from that there is a prohibition, and that's what Rav Sheshet said also, that there is a prohibition for two converted brothers for one to take the wife of the other. So there you go, into the proof for Rav Sheshet. We say no. Hu adin dafilu isura nami leka. No, maybe you can even say there's no isur, and so really you could have said mutarim mishum eshetach. You could have said that, but because of parallelism, the next case is going to be chayavin mishum eshetach. That's why it says en chayavim, to keep the parallel structure. Okay, good. So there's no proof from that case. Now I was going to explain this principle. The fact that we say we do not recognize the paternal lineage of non-Jews, even if they convert after. When they convert after, we do not recognize who their father was. And the reason for this, do not think it's because they are promiscuous and it's hard to determine who the father is, so we don't know who it is. That's why we don't recognize it. Not true. And if it were known for sure sure. If they had DNA, then we would consider the father the legitimate legal father, even in Jewish law. No, if we had DNA evidence, nevertheless, we still would not consider the biological father to be the Jewish legal father. How do you know this? Rava's proof. Look at the first case of the Braita, where they are twins, and that obviously came from one, the father's one seed, and that split into two. So it's obvious that they have this. The twins must have the same father. It's true. And nevertheless, the verdict is they do not do chalitza yibum, meaning they are not considered paternal brothers. And so we learn from here that it's like hefked. Hashem made their seed to be belong to no one. It's like as if they have no father. Tichtib besar chamorim besaram v'zirmat susim zirmatam. Difficult application of a pasuk, but it's making an analogy and says the flesh of goyim, are probably referring to their members, are like that of donkeys, and their seed is like that of horses, and therefore, just like for animals, you don't say, oh, this is who his father was. We don't talk about last names, family names for horses, the son of so-and-so. So too, it's not because we don't know who the father is regarding goyim, but rather because it's simply not recognized legally. All right. Tashema. Now back to the machloket Ravacha and Bar Yaakov and Rav Sheshet. Damar Rabbi Yosef. Maaseh beniftayis hager shenasa eshet achiv me'imo. There was a certain case of this person called Niftayim, who was a convert, and at some point or another, he ended up marrying his brother's former wife. All right, and Obama said and ishut leged, and his case came to the sages and said it's okay for him to have done that because there is no marriage for converts, and therefore we don't recognize the marriage of this Niftayim's brother who married this woman. We don't recognize that as a marriage. So therefore, he's not taking his brother's wife. He's just taking a woman. Now we have to clarify this. Wait a second. Someone who after they converted, if they do kiddushin, are you telling me that there's no kiddushin because the kiddushin is not valid because en ishut laged, a convert cannot get married? That's not true. A convert for sure can get married. What does this even mean? What we meant to say is that there's no prohibition of a brother's wife for a convert. So what case is talking about where we do not recognize that there's no prohibition of a brother's wife? Isn't it a case where the brother married after he converted? So you'll have two people, they converted. After the conversion, two people who were born brothers and non-Jewish, but they both converted, and one then married someone and divorced. And nevertheless, it says there's no problem of the other brother marrying his brother's former ex-wife. So you see that this is permitted, and this looks like it's a proof for Rav Acha Bar Yaakov. Isn't that true? And we say no. No, it could be very well be talking about a case where the two brothers were born not Jewish, and while they were not Jewish, one of them married some woman. So that marriage is not considered a halachically legal marriage because they're not Jewish. That's what it means here, that there's no ishut for when they were not Jewish, and that therefore, and they convert afterwards. And after they convert, and this happens nowadays, sometimes there's a non-Jewish couple and they want to come convert, so they can. So they both, the husband and wife, and if they have children, they can all go undergo conversion. If they do that, then the very next day or soon after, we have to do a marriage ceremony because even if they were married for 10 years as non-Jews, they were not married as Jews. So then they would get married. So same thing here. this brother had married a woman when he was not Jewish. Then they converted. Well, and right now they were never married, so that's why it was permitted for the brother to take her. And so Rav Sheshet can explain it that case in that way. But it would not be so. It would not be allowed if the brother had married her after they converted, then and he died, then the other brother would not be able to take her. Okay, Keshu Goy Mailim. Now we say, hold on, now you explain it that way. It's too extreme the other way. Isn't that obvious? If someone does a marriage when they're not Jewish, obviously it's not a marriage. And so there wouldn't be a problem of Eshet Ach if there's no marriage to begin with. So why would you even need to talk about this case? I might have thought to make a gezerah. I might have thought to say we should not permit brother A to marry the wife of brother B, even if they married when they were not Jewish and never married again after they converted. We should not allow that because it's confusing with a case where brother B married after the conversion and then died, and then brother A, in that case, is not allowed to take her according to Rav Sheshet. So I might have thought, well, maybe I should make a gezerah kamashmala, and that's why he's saying according to Rav Sheshet, we don't make a gezerah. So if they only got married before the conversion, the marriage is not recognized, and therefore is not a sister-in-law, and that's why it's allowed. Okay, so Rav Sheshet defended himself. All right, a further proof. Tashem Adamar ben Yasin. כשהלכתי לקרחי הים מצאתי גר אחד שנשא אשת אחיו מאמו. It says I went to some town overseas, and I met a convert who married his maternal brother's wife. All right, Amarti lo beni mi hirshecha, and I said, who permitted you to do this? All right, this is subject to a big machloket. Who said you can do this? Amar li hare isha v'shiva baneha al safsal ze yashav Rabbi Akiva v'amar shenei devarim. And he says, I testify that look at this woman here. You see, she has 7 sons. So this is already from a long time ago. And Rabbi Akiva sat on this very stool. And he taught the following things. I remember all the details exactly. He says, Ger noseh eshet achiv me'imo. He says, yes, a convert is allowed to marry his brother's wife. A convert is allowed to marry his maternal brother's wife. As he said, it's allowed, and that's what they're following. And he also said something else. V'amar seems to be unrelated. Vayhi devar Adonai el Yonah shenit lemor shenit dibera imo shechina shilishit lo dibera imo shechina. Pasuk says that Hashem spoke to Yonah the first time. He says, go to Nineveh and tell him 40 days is going to be destroyed. He doesn't listen. And he tries to run away, gets swallowed by the fish, and he gets put back on land. And then Hashem tells him a second time, now you really better go to Nineveh. And so this time he goes. So since it says the word shenit, this Rabbi Akiva taught, he gave him a second chance, but never a third chance. That's it. Hashem was after that ceased communication with him. Okay, these seem to be totally unrelated. Maybe they're somehow related because just like a ger makes teshuvah, and Yonah also prophesies to these non-Jews, and they all made teshuvah. So maybe there's some similarity between them. But anyway, for our purposes, we're interested in the first one. Look, Rabbi Akiva said that is permitted to marry a maternal brother's wife. And so isn't this a good proof for Rav Aha bar Yaakov? Maila denasva achiv keshehu ger. Can't we assume that's talking about a case where first they converted, and then brother B married someone, died, and then brother A took her. And so you see, this is a proof for Rav Aha, and they challenged to Rav Sheshet, and we answered just like we did before. La denasva keshehu goy. No, it could be that they got married before they converted. All right, if so, my limemra. If so, then what do you even need the case for? Everyone agrees that any marriage before conversion is not halachically valid, and so they were never eshet ach. So of course it would be allowed for the brother to take his brother's wife when they were not Jewish. And I might have thought to make a gezerah, if we permit someone to take his former brother's wife, who they were only married to when they were not, he was only married to his non-Jew, which is permitted. It might be confusing, and he might also permit brother A to take brother B's wife, who he married after he converted, and that wouldn't be allowed. I might have thought to make a gezerah from the first case to the second, and that's according to Daf Sheshat says, no, it's teaching us not to make such a gezerah. All right. Now, regarding that case of Rabbi Akiva, where a case actually happened, right? And he says, I went to this place and I saw this convert, and they told me, oh, we rely on Rabbi Akiva. We ask, can you trust such a tradition that you have in the name of Rabbi Akiva? And shamin law, right? There's a general rule that any sage who comes and teaches a halacha on the spot, if he had taught that the precedent before the actual case happened, then we can rely on the precedent. But if he never taught us that precedent case, and then all of a sudden a case comes before us, a new case, and he says, "Oh, I have a precedent," then you cannot trust him. Not that we're assuming people are lying, but sometimes there's confirmation bias. And you may remember something or misremember something that seems to be applicable, even if it's not. And therefore, we want a precedent to be on the books already before an actual case comes. And here in this case, first he saw this get. He says, "Hey, who said this is allowed?" And only then they brought this maaseh with Rabbi Akiva, and we hadn't heard about it from before. So how could we rely on it? We have three answers. Maybe the convert taught the ruling, and then afterwards it came to be that he relied on it. And in fact, it was taught before his case actually happened. Okay, we just happen to hear about it now. Or maybe because he's pointing to this case here, like they exist, so he doesn't even have to say he doesn't have to have taught it before. Since the people are actually there, and you can see the proof is in the pudding. Or it might be different here because he stated a different case. This is an unrelated teaching that Rabbi Akiva in the same testimony, he talked about Yonah also. And so you see that he couldn't have made this up because this is part of a complex structure of Rabbi Akiva's teachings. And so it's unlikely he made it up because he remembers other details that are not related to this particular case. So therefore, for any of these three reasons, the precedent is in fact trustworthy. All right, now Amar Mor, now that you mentioned what Rabbi Akiva taught about Yonah, that's a pretty interesting point. Let's go into that. That's what Rabbi Akiva taught. Hashem only spoke to Yonah twice, not three times. Hold on, in a different place, not in Sefer Yonah, but in Sefer Melachim, it says regarding Yerovam ben Yoash, who Heshiv, it's a later king, later Yerovam, who Heshiv et Givul Yisrael milevo Hamat ad Yam Arava kidvar Hashem shediber biyad avdo Yonah ben Amitai hanavi. It says he was able to restore the border of Israel and conquer, restore the border. As God's servant Yonah had prophesied. So there you go. You see, Yonah did in fact prophesy again, not only twice. Here is a third time that he gave a prophecy. So this rejects Rabbi Akiva. What's the answer? No, what Rabbi Akiva meant is that Hashem never told him anything more about Nineveh. That's it. He only had two prophecies about Nineveh and never again. But he had plenty of other prophecies at other times on other subjects. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Amar Hachikam Kidvar Hashem Asher Diber Biyad Abdo Hanavi Keshem Shenepach Leneveh Mera'a L'Tova Kach B'Yimei Yerovam ben Yoash Nepach Lehem Yisrael Mera'a L'Tova. The second answer of Nachman bar Yitzchak is that in fact Yonah did not actually prophesy directly about the case in Melachim, but rather it says kidvad, as similar to, as making a comparison to what happened in Nineveh, to what happened in the time of Yerovam. And just like Hashem changed the fortune of Nineveh from bad to good. So too, in the days of Yerovam, when Israel was having a tough time with their enemies, Hashem changed their destiny from bad to good, just like Yonah had prophesied regarding Nineveh. But this was not a new prophecy to Yonah, and so that would answer the question as well. All right, and now back to more proofs and disproofs between Rav Acha and Rav Sheshet. Tashema. Ger sheya ledato b'kedusha vehorato shelo b'kedusha. If you have a convert when he was born, the mother had converted, but when he was conceived beforehand, the mother had not yet converted. In other words, the mother converted while she was pregnant. If you have such a person, yesh lo she'ed ha'em ve'en lo she'ed ha'av. He is related to his mother and mother's family. He is not related to his father and father's family legally, biologically. That's his father, but not legally according to halacha. Right? So what's the logic here? Because at the time of conception, when the father was involved, the mother was not Jewish. So therefore, at that time, not being Jewish, we do not recognize fatherhood. But since at the time of giving birth, that's when the mother gives birth to her, so we know who the mother is, and the mother at that time is Jewish, and so motherhood follows the time of birth, whereas fatherhood follows the time of conception. Good. Kesad nasa achoto min ha'em yosi. So now we have a few applications of this principle that if someone marries his sister, from his maternal sister, in such a case, right, where he was converted while he was a fetus. In such a case, he has to leave her. This is prohibited, because it's from the mother, and he is related to the mother, and therefore also the mother's other daughter. However, mina'av yekayem, if he marries his paternal sister, that can remain together because he's not legally related to his father or his father's daughter. Achot ha'av min ha'em yosi. If someone marries his father's maternal sister, this is prohibited. They have to divorce. Now, technically, this should be permitted because it is on the father's side, and since the conception of this child was before conversion, so he's not actually related to his father, and therefore not related to his father's half sister either. So why should he have to leave her? And so the answer is because it does involve some maternal lineage here. It's the father's maternal sister. So that aspect of it is sufficient to make it confusing and therefore make it prohibited. Good. Now, min ha'av yekayem. If you have a father's paternal sister, well, that's totally fine because there's no maternal aspect here, and so there's fathers all around, and that is permitted. Achot ha'em min ha'em yosi. This would be the worst case in terms of aunts because it's the mother's maternal half sister, and motherhood is recognized because the child was born Jewish. The fetus was converted, and so there one has to divorce. Now, min ha'av, a mother's paternal half sister. So here we have both. On the other hand, it's on the mother side, so that would make it prohibited, and that's the Rabbi Meir is focusing on that. Rabbi Meir omer yotzi, but Chamim omrim yekayem. Chamim say yes, the mother side, but the mother's paternal sister, and so we do not recognize that paternity, and therefore he can remain married to that aunt. Shehaya Rabbi Meir omer. Now, why did Rabbi Meir say no, have to get divorced? Because he said kol ervash sheyesh shehi mishum she'ed ha'em yosi. He said anytime there's any aspect of maternal lineage, he says no good. Mishum ha'av yekayem. But if it's only forbidden because of fatherhood, that's permitted. So Rabbi Meir will take that one motherhood point into account. In other words, anything there on the mother's side, even if it's a mother's paternal, he says no good. All right, now Baraita continues. This is the key phrases why we brought this whole Baraita in the first place. This is the question. It says that one is permitted to marry his brother's former wife, maternal brother's former wife, and this would support Rav Acha bar Yaakov challenge to Rav Sheshet. So we'll get back to that, but first we have to finish all the other cases of the Braita. Ubeshet Achi Aviv, his father's brother's wife, so another type of aunt. He's permitted to her. I mean, this is from the father, so that's permitted. U'she'ar kol areot mutarot lo, and other forbidden relatives are permitted to this child who were converted as a fetus. And so what is that coming to include? That tuya eshet ha'av, the father's wife, some other wife who was not his mother, would also be permitted. Now, another case. This is now not the case of the child who was converted as a fetus, but rather someone who has a non-Jew. Nasa Isha Bita, who was married to a woman and her daughter as a non-Jew, and then converted afterwards. So the law is, once he converted, he's no longer related to either woman, so he can choose to marry either one, but that's it, only one, and then the other one he will have to leave. And then it says, strangely, lichatechila lo yichnos, and the lichatechila he should not marry. Well, this is strange because if he has to leave them, obviously then the lichatechila he cannot marry them. The Gemara will ask this question and say that the lichatechila is actually going on a previous case. Finally, meta ishto mutar bahamoto. If someone converted and his wife had died, or he was married to someone and his wife had died and he converted, then he's permitted to his former wife's mother. So ve'ika detane asur b'chamato. That's one version, but there's another braita that says no, he's prohibited to his mother-in-law even after his wife dies. Okay, so that's the end of the braita, and here's our question. Katane mihat mutar be'eshet achiv ma'lav denasba achiv keshehu ger. Since it says that one brother is allowed to marry the former wife of the other brother, that is a proof for Rav Acha bar Yaakov against Rav Sheshet, right? And so doesn't this mean that the brother B married her after he converted, and then let's say he died, and then brother A is allowed to marry her? Isn't that the case? And that proves Rav Acha is correct. No, not necessarily. You can equally read this case that brother B had married this person when he was not Jewish and then converted, and therefore they actually were never married legally according to halacha, and that's why it's permitted for the surviving brother to marry her, and even Rav Sheshet would agree to that. There's no proof for Rav Acha's law. Okay, if so, my lememra, as we said before, wasn't this obvious? Since they were never married, there's not going to be any problem of eshet ach. Kamash malan, to make a gezerah, since the cases are so similar. And since when brother B marries after he converted, then brother A is not allowed, I might have thought, to prohibit even when they are married before the conversion and never married again after the conversion. So that's why this baraita comes to say, no, don't make a gezerah. All right, that answers the question. Since we did mention cite this baraita, we have to solve some of the other questions that came up while reading it. Amar mor nasa isha bita kones achat umosi achat lechetechila lo yichnos. What did this mean? That if someone who was not Jewish, who was married to a woman and his daughter, but then he converted, so then he can stay with one, but he has to leave the other. And then it says lechetechila should not marry. Well, hashtad apuke mapik lechetechila mibaya. If he has to leave one of them, then obviously he cannot take them. So hatam ka'eh. No, the answer is that this lechetechila is going on a previous case, and even though the rabbi said in the previous case, a paternal half-sister, where the sages said, yes, you can remain married, but if you were not married, one should not marry them lechatechila. Okay, good. Now, the last case of the Braita was meta ishto. If his wife died, then mutar bachamoto, then this convert is permitted to marry his former mother-in-law. So that was one b'raita. And second one said he's not allowed. So these two b'raitot, which were mentioned anonymously, now we can name them. Chada k'Rabbi Yishmael v'chada k'Rabbi Akiba. Man damar k'Rabbi Yishmael damar chamoto lachar mita be'isura kayema. So the one manda asar, the one that prohibits, that is the opinion of Rabbi Ishmael, because he says that a mother-in-law after death after death of the wife is prohibited for a Jew. Is an absolute prohibition, like other arayot. It's not like two sisters where when one sister dies, one's permitted to the other. No, Rabbi Ishmael says this is just like any other of the other arayot. It doesn't matter if the link in between dies, one is still not allowed to take them. So for a Jew, it's an absolute prohibition. Now, even though regarding a convert, since before the person converted, his wife was not really his wife, and so therefore his mother-in-law was not really his mother-in-law. So that after he converts and the wife dies, so there should be no problem. But the rabbis made a gezerah, because we want to make a gezerah from the convert who marries before he converts to a convert who marries after he converts. So that's the old Rabbi Ishmael. It's only the Rabbanan. Man deshare Rabbi Akiba damar hamato lachar mita kalash leisura. Rabbi Akiba thinks that for a total Jew, once he marries, he's not permitted to be with his wife's mother. But after his wife dies, then that prohibition weakens. Weakens means that it's no longer chayav mita, although it's still prohibited. So therefore, if for a Jew, after his wife dies, his mother-in-law is prohibited, but no capital punishment, then regarding v'gabe ger lo gazu b'rabanan, so regarding a convert, we don't need to make a gezerah. There's no need to make a gezerah for something that's only a weaker prohibition without capital punishment, and that's why Rabbi Akiva permits, in the case of the convert, to marry his mother-in-law after his wife had died. All right, and that brings us to a fascinating case in the next Mishnah. Hamesh nashim shenitarevu veladotehen. You have 5 women that are not related to each other. But the problem is, let's say they all gave birth in the hospital at the same time, and in the nursery and hospital, they all had sons, and all their sons got mixed up, and they each took home one of the babies, but they have no idea if that baby is actually theirs. Okay, let's assume further, we're going to need this for the rest of the case, that they all also have sons who they do recognize. So let's say they had older sons that they know for sure are theirs, and then they had a second. Each one had a second son, and the second sons of each mother all got mixed up with each other. Okay, now higdula taruvot v'nasu nashim v'metu. Okay, they went along with this, and each mother brought up one of the sons, not knowing if it's theirs, and then they all married women, and all 5 of these men died without children. So here's the problem: you have 5 widows, and these 5 widows all need yibum or chalitza, and they all have older brother-in-laws who are the Yevamim. The problem is we don't know which Yavam matches which Yevamah. Okay, a simple solution would be that all 5 of the Yevamim should do chalitza with every single one of the 5 Yevamot, so 25 chalitza acts altogether. And then everybody would go free and marry someone not related. That would be a simple solution, but not the Mishnah solution, because if it's possible to do yibum is a mitzvah. You want to take care of the widow and uphold the name of the deceased. So how can we find a way that there is at least is a possibility of yibum? As follows: 4 of the brothers will do chalitza with one of the Yevamot, ve'achad meyabem ota. But then one, the last, but it doesn't matter really what order, one of the Yevamim will do yibum. Why is that okay? Because if it happens to be that they match up, that this is in fact the wife of his deceased actual brother, then they're doing yibum, and that's a mitzvah. Fantastic. And if not, well, the other brothers already did chalitza, so therefore she isn't allowed to marry anyone, and she can, therefore anyone includes this guy who is not related to her, and so he's not doing yibum, he's just marrying her. Good. And after you do that, hu ushlosha chosin leachat, the one who did yibum, he got a chance to do yibum already, so give someone else a chance. And so he and 3 others will do chalitza to a second of the Yevamot, ve'achad meyabim, and then one of the brothers who did not do yibum yet will do yibum, and so on and so forth until all repeat the process. Nimsu arba chalitzot v'yibum lechol achat ve'achat, and so therefore instead of 25, we have only 16 chalitza acts and 5 yibums, so that each and every one of the women received chalitza from 4 of the other brothers, but they did yibum with one of them. So it turns out that they're all married to one of the older brothers. It could be that they all got the wrong ones. That's, I guess, the more likely case, but it is possible that some of them, or even all of them, got matched up with their actual yavam, their own husband's brother. And so that is the preferred solution. Okay, Gemara comments. V'davka mechalas v'hadar yabumeh. Aval yabumeh beresha la dekapaga bivama la shuk. It's important to do the 4 chalitza acts first, and only then do yibum. Because if you do yibum first, well, if it's the right one, fine. But if it's the wrong one, it's 4 out of 5 chances the wrong one, then this woman who's supposed to do yibum, she has a zikat to one man, and that end up being that she's marrying someone from the marketplace, I mean someone who's not the yavam. So therefore do chalitza first to get rid of all the other possible zikas, and only then do the yibum / marriage. Okay, now why does it say that the one who got to do yibum already, then he does chalitza the next time around? Why not? Why not have one brother do yibum for all of them? In other words, 4 brothers do chalitza for all 5 of the sisters, and one brother, maybe he wants to, and he wants to actually do yibum on all of them. Really, only one of them will be yibum, the other 4 will just be marriages. Says, no, don't do that. Everyone should have a chance to do yibum, or possible yibum, with one of the women. Because, who knows, maybe he will get lucky enough that will be, in fact, his own Yevamah. So we want to leave open at least the possibility that all of the sisters may have found their proper Yevamin, and if one takes all of them, then for sure one will be true, but for sure not the other 4. Good. Now, miksatan achin, miksatan she'en achin, achin chosin v'shen achin miyabemin. Now, this is a baraita that's similar to our Mishnah and adds a more complicated case, in case it wasn't complicated enough, and says if some of them were brothers and some of them were not brothers, then the ones who are brothers do the ones who are brothers do chalitza, and the ones who are not brothers do yibum. This is very cryptic. My ka'amar, what are you talking about? Amar of safrachi ka'amar, this is what it means. Miksat achin min ha'av. I don't think that's missing words. It could very well be that they would formulate the baraita in the kind of cryptic way as a kind of puzzle, and you have to figure it out. But here's what it means. If some of the brothers were paternal brothers, paternal half-brothers, and some of them were maternal half-brothers. In that case, achin min ha'em cholzin, the brothers who these 5 kids, or however many they are, whoever has an older brother who's only a maternal half brother, well, you can't do yibum on a maternal half brother. So since there's no yibum, those older brothers have to do chalitza. Because in other words, they know they have a younger brother, but they don't know which one it is, but they know their younger brother is a maternal half brother. Whereas those who know that they have a paternal half brother, they can do yibum, because since all the other brothers will do chalitza first, and then this one can do yibum because either it is his legitimate, actual half brother's wife, and so that's good yibum, and if not, so they're not related, and then he's just marrying a woman. But if it's only of the mother's half brother, then it is possible that this woman is in fact his maternal half brother's wife, in which case that's eshet ach, and there's no yibum that would permit it. And so that's why he would have to do chalitza on all of them. All right, a similar formula, miksatan kohanim, miksatan she'en kohanim. Some of these second brothers are, well, the older brothers, the same. Some of the older brothers are Kohanim, and some of them are not. Some of the surviving brothers are Kohanim, some of them are not Kohanim. What do? Kohanim choltzin. All the Kohanim have to do chalitza. The reason is because the only way that the older brother marries is by all the other brothers doing chalitza. But the problem is, if he's a Kohen, the Kohen is not allowed to marry a halutza. So yeah, if it so happens that the older brother is marrying his own paternal brother, so let's say they're all paternal here, his own paternal brother's wife, then that would be do yibum, and the Kohen can do yibum, but there's 4 out of 5 chance that he's marrying someone else's brother, and for Yisrael be okay because they're a chalutza, but not for a Kohen. So all the Kohanim have to do chalitza, and Shenam Kohanim yabemin, and the other ones who are not Kohanim, they can perform yibum when after all the other brothers do chalitza. And now combine these two cases, miksatan Kohanim umiksatan achim min ha'em. Some of the brothers are Kohanim, and all the other brothers who are not Kohanim are only only maternal siblings, and therefore none of them is eligible to perform yibum. So elo ve'elu chosin ve'lo miyabemin, since it is always possible that they got the correct sibling, and in that case, achim min ha'em are not allowed to marry their sibling sister because they're only maternal half, so they could not do that. And it's also possible they're getting the wrong one. If it's the wrong one, then it's a chalutza, and then the Kohanim couldn't. We don't know which one is which, and therefore they'd have to all do chalitza, which was my suggestion to begin with, which is the safest one. Okay, so in this case we have no choice. But if it is possible that to find a way to perform yibum, then that is always preferable. I mean, in this scenario here, to find a way to do yibum and have even the possibility that some or all of the brothers are performing yibum. Baruch Adonai Le'olam, Amen ve'amen.